So, hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spy Knight, and in these podcasts, I like talking all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing Only Murders in the Building Season 4. But, just before I do that, you may notice that I have my camera back. Yes, I'm not recording on my phone anymore. If you watch it on YouTube, you'll notice I'm not recording on my phone anymore. The quality of the picture should be slightly better because I didn't get my camera fixed, but I got it back. There's a longer story there, but I'm not going to get into it today because instead, today I'm reviewing Only Murders in the Building Season 4. So, let's get into it, shall we? This is the fourth series of Only Murders in the Building, and I am a big fan of this show. I have really enjoyed it, for the most part, up to Series 4. You know, the first two seasons of the show I thought were insanely good, and the third season was a step down from season 1 and 2, but was still an absolute joy to watch. So when I heard that a season 4 was in production, I was very excited, because it's a fun, light-hearted show that is a change from so much of the TV we see on TV nowadays. You know, so much of TV that is on right now, so much must-watch TV, is quite depressing to watch, and it's great TV, but it also hits you in a way where you come away from watching a certain episode of a TV show, like, say, The Penguin, which is out right now, and you find yourself feeling quite depressed at the content you've seen in that show. But whereas with Only Murders in the Building, you don't really get that as much. I mean, I'm not saying the show doesn't have dark moments. It definitely does. Each season focuses on a murder or a group of murders, so there's automatically going to be some dark elements explored in each season of Only Murders in the Building, but it doesn't just focus on the dark stuff. And there's a lot of comedy in the series, which works tremendously well. And I'm not a big fan of Steve Martin. I mean, I wasn't a fan of Steve Martin before I watched Only Murders in the Building, but then I became a fan of Steve Martin since watching him in this show, and since watching him alongside Martin Short and Selena Gomez, two other stars I wasn't really a fan of before watching this series. And yeah, it's so funny to watch, it's so entertaining, and when I heard that a fourth series was coming, I got very excited. And the fourth series has the most guest stars of any season of Only Murders in the Building yet, because that's the thing with Only Murders in the Building. You have this wide range of guest stars in each season of the show, and in this season you've got Meryl Streep returning, because she was in season 3 of Only Murders in the Building. You've got Paul Rudd returning as well, although he's playing a different character, which makes sense when you watch this season. And you have new guest stars such as Eugene Levy, Zach Galifianakis, Eva Longoria, Richard Kind, Kumail Nanjiani, and loads more. This season of Only Murders, Melissa McCarthy's in there in a very memorable guest star role. Yes, this season of Only Murders in the Building has a jam-packed guest supporting cast. And with all that, I was very excited a couple months ago now to sit down and start watching Only Murders in the Building Season 4. And having finished it earlier this week, hear my thoughts on it. Hear my thoughts on this newest season of Only Murders in the Building. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun watching the season of Only Murders in the Building. And at least once in every single episode of the season, I laughed out loud. This series has a lot of funny moments and has a great storyline that I found myself really getting into. That all being said, I do think this is the weakest season of Only Murders in the Building yet. I feel bad saying that because I really wanted to love the season the same way I loved season 1 and 2, or like it the same way I liked season 3. Like, season 3 was a step down from season 1 and 2, but it was still really good TV in my opinion. It's super entertaining to watch. But this season isn't as sharp as the previous 3 seasons were, and the comedy isn't as funny. Like I said, there are still laugh out loud moments in every single episode for sure, but I was watching, I can't remember which episode it was either episode 4, episode 5 in this season of Only Murders in the Building, and it's a 10 episode season, which is quite something that they make it so quick, because the last season only came out about a year ago now, so there's a quick turnaround on these seasons of Only Murders in the Building, which is not something to turn your nose about. That's quite something, especially nowadays when you get these big budget TV shows like House of the Dragon or Rings of Power, or I don't know, Severance, which is coming out, the second season of Severance, which is coming out next year, where you get these long breaks between each season of the show, and you don't get that with Only Murders in the Building, which is a little tangent there, but I'm very glad that this show has a quick turnaround. But going back to the point I was making, I think it was like episode 4, episode 5 in this season of Only Murders in the Building, I was watching and I was thinking, okay, it's funny, I'm not laughing at it, but I remember watching season 1 and season 2 and laughing in almost every single scene, and laughing from one scene to the next. I mean, it felt like I was laughing from one scene to the next. It felt like there was a laugh out loud moment every minute, or every other minute in the first, or even like every 30 seconds or every other 30 seconds in the first 2 seasons of Only Murders in the Building. And I didn't get that with this season. Again, there are still laugh out loud moments, but they're far more few and between than they were in the previous 3 seasons. And I don't feel the writing is as sharp, and there was a couple episodes in this season where I was like, why is this important? Why are we focusing on this? I do feel this series of Only Murders is uneven and unfocused, because there's a whole section of this season, I'm not getting into spoilers in case people haven't seen this season yet, but there's a whole section of the season of Only Murders in the Building which focuses on something which doesn't have any relation to the murder, and I understand why they did that, and I liked the focus. Again, I'm trying not to get into spoilers, but looking back, I'm wondering why there was so much focus on something that wasn't the main focus on the show. It did feel like this season of Only Murders slightly meandered in different directions that it perhaps didn't need to. So yeah, that's why I think it's a weaker season yet, because it meanders, it feels unfocused at times, it isn't even in its comedy. There are some episodes which I was dying of laughter at. Episode 6 of the series, I think, is one of the funniest episodes of Only Murders in the Building, period. There's a fight between Meryl Streep and Melissa McCarthy, but their characters in episode 6 of this season, which was outrageously hilarious, and there were a lot of hilarious moments in the first couple episodes as well. There was a lot of funny moments, but I did feel it was uneven in its comedy, and it wasn't as funny as I wanted it to be, as I was hoping it would be, as seasons 1 and 2 were, and season 3 was as well. Season 3, again, I thought was a step down from seasons 1 and 2, but still had a lot of very funny moments, and I was missing that from this season of Only Murders in the Building. However, I did still have a really good time watching this season of Only Murders in the Building. How many times am I going to say the title of this show in this podcast today? Apparently quite a lot, but I did still really enjoy this season of Only Murders in the Building, and I looked forward to watching every episode, and I got into the story far more than I expected to, far more than I did in season 3. Looking back, I don't even remember who the murderer was for season 3, and I enjoyed season 3. I'm not dissing it, but in this season of Only Murders, I didn't guess who the murderer was going to be. And looking back, that was probably because I'm an idiot, because it's actually pretty obvious looking back who the murderer was. Like, they reveal it in an episode in pretty much plain sight, and I didn't see that coming. But, give credit where credit's due. I didn't guess who the murderer was in this season, and I guessed who the murderer was in season 1 and in season 2, and I really liked how the relationship between Steve Martin's character and Jane Lynch's character, Saz, is at the focus of this season, because even so, well, getting spoilers here for the 3rd season of Only Murders in case you haven't seen it, so little spoiler warning there. Even so, Saz is the murder victim in this season of Only Murders in the Building. She's still in it quite a lot. There's a lot of flashbacks with her character in the series, and the relationship between her character and Steve Martin's character is the focus, is at the heart of this season of Only Murders, and I liked how that was done. You know, there's a little bit in the last episode of this season which actually made me feel sad. I'm not going to get into what, but I thought that relationship aspect of this season was done very well, and the chemistry between the main three leads is, as ever, a joy to watch, and the guest stars throw themselves into the roles in the way you want them to, and it's just a delightful show to watch. That's what it is. But I hope that, and again, I'm a fan of this show. I like to think I'm coming from a place that means well when I say this. I hope that the next season of Only Murders in the Building is the last, because this season does feel a bit tired and feels like it's starting to outstay its welcome. Feels like this show overall is starting to outstay its welcome, and they've already announced that a 5th season of Only Murders is happening, and I'm hoping that the 5th season is the last. And they set it up in a way where it could be the last, but then they also set up season 4 in a way where it could be the last season. So, and it isn't the last season, so I'm hoping that the next season is the last, and they wrap it up in a nice, neat bow, and don't just keep going. Like, I hope we don't get to season 6 and season 7 of Only Murders in the Building, and there's still murders happening in this building, because it wouldn't really work. And actually, they do poke fun of that. They do poke fun at that at the start of this season of Only Murders in the Building. At the start of this season of Only Murders in the Building, the main three characters are like, why do murders keep happening in this building? And, you know, they do poke fun at that in a way which actually really works me. But there's only so far you can go with that. There's only so far you can go with the meta and self-referential jokes before the joke starts being on you as a show which jumped the shark and should have ended a long time ago. And I'm hoping, because I really, really enjoyed Only Murders in the Building, I'm hoping that doesn't happen with this show. I'm hoping that it ends with the next season and that it goes out on a high. But I still really enjoyed Only Murders in the Building season 4, and that is why I'm going to give it, I think I'm going to give it a 7.3 out of 10. You know, I want to say it's a 7.5 out of 10, because if it was a 7.5 out of 10, I'd say it's a solid series of TV. But I wouldn't quite say it was that rating. I wouldn't say it was a solid season of TV, just because it was uneven in parts and it didn't make me laugh quite as much as I was hoping it would. But it was still really enjoyable to watch, you know. And I like this show quite a bit, and I'm looking forward to the next season. I just don't want it to outstay its welcome, and I want the next season to be funnier and sharper, and not feel as tired as this series did in parts. You know, feel more focused and wrap everything up, because I'm starting to feel like Only Murders has had its day in the sun, and I don't want the next season to feel like they've jumped the shark, and I'm slightly worried that they might. But again, I enjoyed the season of Only Murders in the Building. There was enough. It made me laugh out loud in every single episode. There was enough comedy in every episode, which worked. And yeah, I got into the story far more than I expected to, and the characters were just as fun to watch as ever, as were the guest stars. And so, all in all, as I've already said, and as I'm going to say once more in this podcast today, Only Murders in the Building Season 4 is a 7.3 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen Only Murders in the Building Season 4, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast. And look forward to many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. Hopefully this podcast worked out today, because I'm really not well. I'm struggling quite a bit right now. But hopefully you still enjoy this podcast. And thank you as ever for watching or listening to this podcast, and I suppose that's it. So I will see you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye.